Picture this. You're scrolling through social media at 2 a.m., watching someone half your age buy their third Lamborghini while you're calculating whether you can afford extra guacamole. You close the app, stare at the ceiling, and wonder, when did I become a peasant in my own life? Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to admit. Most of us aren't kings of anything. We're not even knights in our own story. We're peasants, shuffling through life, desperately hoping someone else will tell us we matter, validate our choices, maybe throw us a bone of approval so we can feel worthy for 5 minutes. But here's what's really twisted about this whole game. We've convinced ourselves that this is normal, that seeking external validation is just being social, that needing others to define our worth is just being humble, that letting the world dictate our choices is just being realistic. Bullshit. You know what Guy Ritchie once said? If you don't own something, you're not the boss. And mate, most of us don't own anything. Not our decisions, not our identity, not even our own damn opinions. We rent them from society, lease them from our peer group, and pay interest in the form of anxiety, depression, and that gnawing feeling that we're living someone else's life.
Think about your last major decision. Did you make it because it felt right in your core, or because you could already imagine how you'd explain it to others? Did you choose based on your authentic desire, or based on what would look good on Instagram? Be honest with yourself, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. We live in a world that's designed to make you feel insufficient. Every advertisement, every social media post, every news story is crafted with one purpose: to make you feel like you're not enough as you are. You need this product, this lifestyle, this person's approval to finally be complete. It's the oldest con game in human history, and we fall for it every single day. But here's the thing that'll really mess with your head. You already are the king. You always have been. You just handed over your crown so long ago that you've forgotten what it feels like to wear it.
Think about it. When you were a kid, before the world got its hooks into you, you didn't need permission to be yourself. You didn't check with anyone before deciding you liked dinosaurs or hated broccoli. You didn't calculate the social impact of your laughter or edit your personality for different audiences. You were the undisputed ruler of your own little kingdom, and you governed with absolute authority. What happened to that person? Society happened. School happened. The desperate need to fit in happened. The fear of judgment happened. Slowly, incrementally, you started outsourcing your decisions. First to your parents, then to your teachers, then to your friends, then to your boss, then to social media, then to complete strangers whose opinions somehow became more important than your own inner voice. And now? Now you're walking around asking permission to exist in your own life. But here's what most people miss about this whole sovereignty thing. It's not about becoming some arrogant dictator who doesn't care what anyone thinks. That's not a king, that's a tyrant. And tyrants, as history shows us, always fall. Real kingship, the kind that Guy Ritchie understands through his storytelling, is about something far more profound. It's about taking absolute responsibility for your kingdom, which is your life, your choices, your responses to what happens to you. It's about understanding that while you can't control what the world throws at you, you have complete dominion over how you respond. It's about recognizing that seeking validation from others is like asking prisoners for directions to freedom. These people are just as lost as you are, maybe more so. Why would you give them the power to determine your worth? The question isn't whether you're capable of being a king. You already are one. The question is, are you going to reclaim your throne, or are you going to keep bowing to pretenders who have no more authority than you gave them? This isn't about ego. This isn't about power over others. This is about something much more revolutionary, taking back power over yourself. because until you master your own kingdom, you'll always be a subject in someone else's.
So how do we actually reclaim this throne? How do we stop being peasants in our own story and become the king we were meant to be? Let me tell you something about Guy Ritchie that most people don't understand. This isn't just some posh British director making stylish crime films. This is a man who understands the architecture of power, not political power, not financial power, but the deepest kind of power there is, sovereignty over your own existence. When Ritchie talks about storytelling, he's not just talking about movies, he's talking about the story you tell yourself about who you are. And here's the thing. Most people are living in someone else's story, playing a character that was written for them by parents, society, peer pressure, and fear. But every great story, every narrative that actually matters, follows the same pattern. Someone starts as a subject, faces a crisis that forces them to choose, and either emerges as the ruler of their own destiny or remains forever enslaved to external forces. Think about Arthur pulling the sword from the stone. Now, most people see this as some magical moment where Arthur becomes special, but that's missing the entire point. Arthur was always the king. The sword was always his. The stone, that represents the material world, the world of appearances, the world that tells you who you should be. The extraction isn't about becoming powerful. It's about taking back the power that was always yours. But here's where it gets really interesting. Before Arthur could pull that sword, he had to live in the brothels. He had to understand the streets. He had to climb every rung of the ladder from the bottom up. Why? Because you can't rule what you don't understand. You can't be sovereign over forces you've never faced. Most people want to skip this part. They want the crown without the struggle, the authority without the responsibility. They want to be king of their own kingdom, but they've never bothered to explore the dark corners of their own territory. They don't know their own weaknesses, their own shadows, their own capacity for both nobility and destruction. This is why so many people fail when they try to take control of their lives. They think sovereignty means never being affected by anything external. They think being a king means never feeling hurt, never struggling, never being challenged. But that's not kingship. That's delusion. A real king understands that his kingdom will face storms. There will be invasions, betrayals, moments when everything seems lost. The difference between a king and a pretender is this. When the storm hits, the king doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asks, "How do I respond to this in a way that serves my kingdom?"
You see, the external world, all those voices trying to tell you who you are, all those systems trying to make you feel small, they're not going away. The advertising will keep trying to convince you that you're incomplete. Social media will keep showing you lives that seem more glamorous than yours. People will keep projecting their own insecurities onto you in the form of criticism and judgment. But here's the secret that changes everything. None of that has any power over you unless you give it power. The moment you stop seeking validation from the external world, the moment you stop letting others define your worth, the moment you take full responsibility for your own kingdom, that's the moment you become ungovernable. And if you're finding value in this perspective, if these ideas are resonating with your own journey towards sovereignty, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community of people who are committed to mastering their own kingdoms. Because this isn't just entertainment. This is about fundamentally changing how you show up in the world. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice. Because sovereignty isn't some abstract philosophical concept. It's a way of moving through the world. When you're truly the king of your own kingdom, you stop asking permission to be yourself. You stop editing your personality for different audiences. You stop calculating the social cost of your authentic thoughts and feelings. You become what Ritchie calls the uncarved block, your natural, undistorted self. But, and this is crucial, this doesn't mean you become a selfish tyrant who doesn't care about anyone else. Real sovereignty is actually the opposite. When you're not desperately seeking validation, when you're not operating from a place of scarcity and fear, you actually have more to give others. You become a source of strength rather than a drain on energy. Think about the people in your life who you genuinely respect and admire. I'll bet they share certain qualities. They're comfortable in their own skin. They don't seem to need your approval to feel good about themselves. They have clear boundaries, and they treat you with respect because they respect themselves. These people aren't trying to impress you. They're not performing for your approval. They're simply being themselves with such authenticity that it gives you permission to be yourself too. That's what real kingship looks like. It elevates everyone in the kingdom. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think this transformation happens overnight. They think you just decide to be sovereign and suddenly you're free from all external influence. That's not how it works.
Reclaiming your throne is a daily practice. Every day, you're going to face moments where you can either act from your authentic center or react from your programmed responses. You're going to have opportunities to either own your choices completely or blame circumstances for your situation. So here's the final truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. You've always been the king. Every single day of your life, you've been making choices from the throne of your own consciousness. The question isn't whether you have the power. You do. The question is whether you're going to own that power or keep pretending someone else is in charge. When you walk into a room tomorrow, you can either walk in as someone seeking approval, calculating how to fit in, editing yourself to match what you think others want to see, or you can walk in as the sovereign of your own existence, comfortable in your own skin, offering your authentic self to the world without apology. When someone criticizes you, you can either let their words determine your worth, scrambling to defend yourself or change to meet their expectations, or you can listen from a place of centeredness, take what serves you and leave the rest, knowing that their opinion is just that, their opinion.
When you face a setback, you can either play victim to circumstances, asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Or you can step into your role as the architect of your response, asking, "How do I turn this into something that serves my growth?" This is what Guy Ritchie understood when he said, "You must be the master of your own kingdom." It's not about controlling every outcome. That's impossible and exhausting. It's about taking complete ownership of your inner world, your responses, your choices, and your growth. The external world will always be chaotic. People will always have opinions about you. Circumstances will always be unpredictable. But in the center of all that chaos, there's a space that belongs entirely to you, the space where you decide who you're going to be in response to whatever life throws at you. That space is your throne room, and you're the only one who gets to sit in that chair. Start today. Start with the next choice you make. Don't ask permission to be yourself. Don't calculate the social cost of your authenticity. Don't hand over your power to people who are probably just as lost as you used to be.
Own your choices completely, both the good ones and the mistakes. Take responsibility for your reactions. Set boundaries that serve your highest good. Stop seeking validation from a world that doesn't even know what it wants from itself. Your kingdom awaits its rightful ruler. The crown has always been yours. The only question is, are you ready to wear it? If this resonated with you and you're ready to take your personal sovereignty to the next level,
I highly recommend watching our video, Rise Like Hercules, make the strongest comeback of your life, because mastering your own kingdom is just the beginning of what you're truly capable of.